is Extra Innings with Pleasure.
Truth is, I am Iron Man.
Rock and roll! The Texans win it!
You've been called the Da Vinci of our time. What do you say to that?
Absolutely ridiculous. I don't paint.
That ball is history! A walk-off home run!
And it's going to be legendary.
James Pledger wraps your day with insight, opinion, plenty of sarcasm, and of course, your calls. He'll even pour a beer out the door for his favorite story of the day. This is Extra Innings with Pledger. Now, here's Pledge.
What's up, Danger? Can't stop me now.
Welcome into Extra Innings with Pleasure right here on San Antonio Sports Star, 94.1 FM, sasportstar.com. I am James Pledger. Thanks for joining me, however you may be joining me, whether that is 94.1 on your FM dial. If you happen to be listening online at sasportstar.com via our AA Best Bail Bonds audio player, or if you're watching live on YouTube, that's right, we stream all of our shows live via YouTube. Just go there, search SA Sports Star, go ahead, like, subscribe, smash that like button, go ahead and comment along with the show, or you can get in touch with us the old-fashioned way, 210-656-ESPN, 656-3776 if you want to be a part of the conversation. And the conversation, well, it's the end of an era in San Antonio. As Greg Popovich, as you hear in SportsCenter all day during the Blitz, has stepped away from being the head coach of the San Antonio Spurs and now will take on the full-time role of being the president of basketball operations for the Spurs, while Mitch Johnson takes over the helm as the head coach. And there's a ton to get into with this, but earlier today, Jason Minix on the Blitz had this great interview with Mike Finger from the San Antonio Express News talking about Pop stepping away, everything behind it, Mitch Johnson becoming the head coach, and then the future of the San Antonio Spurs.
Maybe one of the biggest sports news days in the history of San Antonio. Greg Popovich, no longer the head coach of the San Antonio Spurs, will remain with the organization as president of basketball operations. And of course, Mitch Johnson already named the new head coach. Let's talk about it with San Antonio Express News columnist Mike Finger joining us on the Buyers Barricades guest line. Mike, two major stories with two very different reactions. Let's start with the decision for Greg Popovich, and I think we all kind of felt this coming, but to actually make it official today, your first reaction when you heard the news?
Yeah, I think like everybody else, it's something that we all expected, and yet something we sort of never imagined could actually happen. It's like you said it. It's a momentous day. Probably a day that had to happen. Probably a day that. I mean, when a 76-year-old man who's already the oldest person ever to coach an NBA game suffers a stroke before a game, whether it's mild or minor, however you want to classify it or not, like that's a major deal. And I think that most people who are around the team, most people who follow the team, have realized this was going to be a possibility, maybe even a probability, for a long time now. But for it to be finalized, it's really something, Jason. And I think the Spurs realized that they couldn't go through a whole other offseason waiting for him. And Greg Popovich really tried. He wanted to come back. This job means everything to him, not just the coaching basketball, but everything that goes along with it. He wanted to try, but I think everybody realized at some point that spending an entire offseason with uncertainty probably was not going to benefit anyone, and this day just needed to happen.
Mike Finger from the San Antonio Express News here on the Blitz. Mike, no doubt trying to return was probably a huge motivator in his rehab process, especially early on. But I do think this is the best move for the organization because he's still a part of it. And moving forward, when do you think the decision was made? I kind of feel like this has probably been made a couple of weeks ago, but they wanted to wait until you can completely close the book on the season, and they did that with the Rookie of the Year press conference the other day.
Try not to be insensitive about this, but I think that this is a decision that sort of came gradually. And sort like, if you would have asked me, I'll leave sources and team officials out of it. If you would have asked me 3 months ago, is Greg Popovich going to coach again? Which, by the way, is something that in every town in America I go to, whether it's for college football games or NBA games or vacation or whatever, everyone would ask, is Greg Popovich going to coach again? My answer all along was probably not. Like, it just did not seem likely. And I think the Spurs probably felt that way too. But you had to give him the chance to try. And I think that to answer your question on when this was ultimately officially decided, I don't know if there was a one day, but I think at some point you just had to go to Greg Popovich and say, look, we respect you trying, but I think it's time. And I think Greg Popovich finally understood that. And, this might have been something that everyone understood 2 weeks ago. It might have been a month ago, but it had to happen at some point. And I think it's good for the organization. Like you said, Pop's going to continue to be around. His presence, what I wrote today, in a column for tomorrow's newspaper, is, his presence had been sort of inescapable even after the stroke. When he was gone, he's always going to have a huge influence on this program, on this franchise, on everybody who he's touched over the years. And that will continue to be the case. But they needed to turn it over to somebody new, to whoever was going to take over full time. And to transition to your next topic, that person is 38-year-old Mitch Johnson, which is sort of staggering in itself.
It really is. And, Mike Finger, the idea that we don't really celebrate the great coaching career of Pop because they did make the announcement so quickly. And I get it. The speculation, would it be Malone? Would it be Becky? Would it be Steve Kerr, Taylor Jenkins? You name the long list of potential candidates. They nipped that in the bud almost immediately. But at least what I've seen on social media, comments on our YouTube, callers to the show today, not a lot of excitement for Mitch Johnson. Your initial reaction, and I saw you tweet, Wemby had a whole lot to say in this decision.
Well, I didn't mean that Wemby picked him.
Sure.
But this would not happen. This would not happen without Victor Wembanyama's full-throated, complete, explicit endorsement. Like, if Victor had any reservations about this at all, it would not happen. And that's just sort of common sense. I mean, the moment that the Spurs won that lottery 2 summers ago, Victor Wembanyama became the most important person in the whole organization, Greg Popovich included. And that's just an obvious chain of events. I mean, he's that kind of player. Every move that the Spurs make moving forward has to be built around Victor Wembanyama and Victor Wembanyama wanting it. So, yes, like there's, without a doubt, there is no way that Victor Wembanyama has any reservations about playing for Mitch Johnson. He mentioned that in his discussion with us after the season about how impressed he was with the way the Spurs played without Victor. Mitch kept them going. But to get back to your point about the lack of enthusiasm from the fans, like, that's understandable. A couple things there. No NBA team should be able to make a decision like that, trying to win the press conference. Like, that it's too important. And we've seen so many times over the years a team trying to win the press conference, get the guy that everybody thinks they should get, and that guy's fired within a year. The Spurs do things their own way. The other thing is, like, yes. If the Spurs were to open this up, if they would have said today, Greg Popovich is retiring, we are going to wait on our announcement as the head coach later. Every person in the world who has ever picked up a whistle, who has ever coached a CYO, YMCA practice, high school practice, junior high practice, every Hall of Famer, every NBA coach, every college coach would have been interested in that job. And that, I think, is where your listeners are coming from in the idea that anybody could have had this, and they could have had their pick of anyone. So why did they pick this guy? And they did it because they believe in him. And it's an understandable reaction for people to say that they should have opened it up to somebody else, but this is their guy. This is the guy Wemby believes in. This is the guy Pop believed in. He's the guy who's come up through their system. And we'll find out if they're right or not. I'm not sure. I'm not going to say one or the other, But it is a very Spurs thing to do, to keep it in the family and to keep that continuity going.
Mike Finger from the San Antonio Express News joining us here on the Blitz. I got to believe in the what if scenario world prior to the stroke. If something were to happen to Pop, Mitch Johnson would be interim coach. That's why that decision seemingly was made so quickly. Do you think, like, for years, it always felt like, well, when Pop retires, it'll be Coach Bud. And then Coach Bud obviously went and became a head coach. Do you think Mitch has been kind of the coach in waiting without us knowing for a couple of years?
I don't think that, actually. I think that if this would have happened a year ago, I don't think that Mitch Johnson would have taken over. Let's say if Greg Popovich had retired last April, I just don't see how. I don't think they could have gone to Mitch Johnson, who had at that point never even coached on an interim basis, other than like a game or two. There's no way that would happen. I think he really impressed them with what he did over the past year. I think a year ago they might have looked at, name your Will Hardys, your Taylor Jenkins, those type of players, those type of coaches. I think that what he did, taking over the way he took over, just spur of the moment, with all this uncertainty as to Pop's health, as to what was going to happen. Like, he did a remarkably solid job during the season that I think really won everybody over. And I think that made him the guy.
Mike Finger, columnist with the San Antonio Express News here on the Blitz. You've got a couple of stories on the website today. The column that you wrote, I guess, being tomorrow's paper, talking about Pop's presence. When you've been covering this team this year, and you get access that most don't, when you've been around Mitch Johnson, what kind of guy is he? And I ask that in the way of, a lot of us don't get to know these guys because they don't do a lot of interviews on radio or television. I don't know Mitch Johnson. I think personally I've talked to him twice. What kind of guy is he when he's not around all the cameras and microphones?
To go back, I think that goes back to the way he was hired, which was basically to be there for DeJounte Murray. It was after the Spurs drafted DeJounte. DeJounte came, as your listeners, I'm sure, are aware, had a pretty rough upbringing in Seattle. And one of the guys that connected with him early on was Mitch Johnson, who had been a point guard at Stanford, who was doing some youth coaching at that time, really made a connection with DeJounte. And the Spurs kind of hired him to be around and to continue that relationship. Over the years that followed, they found out that this is just not a guy to take care of DeJounte Murray, to kind of foster that one player's improvement. This was a guy that they wanted around in all sorts of areas, that he could be a development guy for other players. He could be a G League coach for those players in Austin. He could be a summer league coach. He could be a guy who, just as an example, would warm Wemby up as an assistant before every game. He was the guy who was shagging balls for him. And once he became head coach, he continued to shag balls for Wemby. I think he was the only head coach in the NBA who was doing that during pregame warmups. And that just kind of speaks to the kind of guy he is, that he just impressed everyone with the work that he put in. And he's not a flashy guy. He's got a good sense of humor. He's got a good personality to him. You can't work for the Spurs without that. But humble, hardworking, knows his stuff, commands the respect of the locker room. That's another big thing. It's like no one thought that it was the substitute teacher when Mitch Johnson was in control. So all of that leads to the Spurs making this decision now. And I'm not here to guarantee you that he's going to be a resounding success and that he's going to follow Pop to the Hall of Fame, or even be here, 3, 4, or 5 years from now. But there are reasons to believe he can be very good at this.
That was Mike Finger earlier today on the Blitz in wake of the Pop stepping down as the head coach of the basketball team, moving into a full-time transition into the president of basketball operations, and Mitch Johnson being named the full-time head coach, taking that interim tag off. What are your reactions? Let's hear them We'll go over it on the YouTube channel at SA Sports Star on YouTube, what you have to say, or feel free to call in 210-656-ESPN 656-3776. Your reaction to the pop news coming up next here on Extra Innings with Pleasure on 94.1 San Antonio Sports Star.
Listen up, San Antonio. At University of Maryland Global Campus, you can get college credit for the stripes you've earned. Turn your military rank into college credit to save time and money on an online degree. Eligible enlisted service members and previously enlisted veterans may receive up to 12 credits for select undergraduate courses based on their rank, and up to 90 credits in total for prior learning, military experience, and training. Classes start soon. Learn more at umgc.edu/SATX.
When it comes to vaccines, it's important to get the facts. The City of San Antonio Metropolitan Health District understands that keeping your child safe is your top priority. Vaccines are safe and can help your child's immune system fight harmful germs. They protect against serious diseases and can even save lives. Because when it comes to your child's health, it's time to get real about vaccines and get the facts. Learn more at sa.gov/health. sa.gov/health.
There's a reason Intuitive Services Group handles our janitorial needs here at 94.1. They're local and serious about cleanliness. From nightly cleaning to detailed floor care, they deliver. We trust them, and you can too. Call Mo at 830-470-3007. That's 830-470-3007.
ZipRecruiter is the place. ZipRecruiter is the place for talented teachers, savvy software developers, and master mixologists. ZipRecruiter is the place where you meet all these people and more. That's because ZipRecruiter is the place for job seekers who are looking for new opportunities. In fact, ZipRecruiter helps 10 million people with their job search every day, so you can find the right candidates right away. Try ZipRecruiter for free at ziprecruiter.com/free. That's ziprecruiter.com/free.
If you're 55 and up, T-Mobile has plans built just for you. 2 lines of unlimited for just $30 a line. That's a 45% savings compared to Verizon and AT&T. But don't just take our word for it.
It's not just the savings that are great with our T-Mobile plan. There's all this value from all these other things that T-Mobile offers.
T-Mobile has been such a savings for us.
We love it. Switch today and get 2 free 5G phones like the Motorola Edge with Turbo Power charging that gives you power for the day in just 15 minutes. And customers 55 and up can get 2 lines of talk, text, and data for only $30 a line. Go to T-Mobile.com/55 to learn more. With 24 monthly bill credits and 2 new lines with autopay for well-qualified customers, plus taxes, fees, and $35 per line connection charge. Credits end and balance due if you pay off early or cancel. Contact us, plus $5 per line without autopay. Debit or bank account required. 45% off 2 lines versus AT&T Starter and Verizon Welcome. Plan benefits vary. See details at T-Mobile.com. Motorola Edge requires 68-watt charger. Charger sold separately. Actual performance will vary based on usage and configuration.
This is the story of the one. As a lineman, he does whatever it takes to keep the power on in his community. And he wants a partner like Grainger who does the same. Grainger offers the professional-grade products he needs, from voltage detectors to harnesses to hard hats, plus fast, dependable delivery, so he can rise to every challenge. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
This is the story of the one. As a safety manager at a manufacturing plant, he does everything he can to keep his coworkers safe. From finding ways to reduce risks to keeping safety supplies in stock. And for that, he relies on Grainger. Grainger offers a broad range of quality products and next-day delivery, so he can always play it safe. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Price varies based on product and subscription plan.
Hey guys, let's talk ED because millions of men experience it, but not everyone can access or afford treatments like Viagra. Hims can help. Through Hims.com, you can access a full range of treatment options for ED through a 100% online process. To start your free online visit and save up to 95%, go to Hims.com/joy. HIMS.com/JOY.
It's Extra Innings with Pleasure on 94.1 San Antonio Sports Star.
Welcome back into Extra Innings with Pleasure right here on San Antonio Sports Star, 94.1 FM, sasportstar.com. I am James Pleasure. Appreciate y'all for joining me. If you're listening on 94.1, sasportstar.com, or on YouTube at SA Sports Star. I am James Pledger. I am at I am Pledger on all social media platforms. You can follow the station at SA Sports Star. Lots to get into when it comes to Pop and Mitch Johnson and everything. And like I said, your reaction, phone lines are open as we take you to the bottom of the hour for Rangers baseball and their pregame. First in, Casey, welcome into Extra Innings with Pledge, my man. What's going on?
Yes, sir. I just wanted to comment about Mitch Johnson. I think a lot of us weren't, huge fans of some of the things that he did this season. But you got to remember, we won, close to double the amount of games that, we won last season. And, I think a lot of it was thanks to Mr. Johnson. And, I think he kind of was thrown into a mess. And I think you also got to think, would the record look similar if Greg Popovich was still head coach with all the injuries that we had? So I don't think it's really appropriate to jump on the bandwagon right now when, he wasn't really thrown into a good situation from the get-go.
That's true, and I appreciate the phone call, Casey. Thank you very much. Mitch deserves his time, and I do believe he will get his time. A lot of people are wondering if he could be, if things don't go well this upcoming year, could he potentially be gone after one season? And unless this thing just falls apart and burns down and there's tension inside the locker room and the locker room just doesn't respect him, which I do not expect to happen, I think we know the Spurs as an organization are going to at least trust the process, give it time, and let this thing build itself out. And Mitch is a part of now trusting the process because, let's face it, this was probably something that Pop has talked about with the organization, and he has been picked as the successor to Greg Popovich, and they are going to give him the benefit of the doubt as he tries to turn this battleship from 31 wins into a playoff contender. And I was talking about it yesterday at the end of my show where, you look at what the Rockets did this year. They went from not in the playoffs to the second seed in the Western Conference this year. And now they may get bounced in the first round. And you have to wonder, what are they going to do? Well, you look at what Oklahoma City did. They were second in the West the year before. They had an early playoff exit. They kept the band together. They didn't go for the big splash. They added Alex Caruso and Isaiah Hartenstein and believed in their core. And now they are the best team in the NBA this year and look like a lock in the Western Conference to make their way into the NBA Finals the way they're playing. Will the Rockets have the same patience to do the same thing, or are they going to be all in on going to get a Giannis or a Booker or a Kevin Durant? I think the Spurs, they're at a similar crossroads right now because it's always about trust the process, not skipping steps, do this, do that. We always hear the cliche taglines. Now it's time to put the money where the mouth is. And do they continue to build this team out? And now that they have a core with Fox and Wemby and Stephon Castle even, do they continue to add the pieces that need to be added around it, like 3-point perimeter shooting, defensive prowess, and a big down low to help out? Are those things that they invest in this offseason, or do they go for the big splash? I think that's very, very, very important and will kind of dictate the way the Spurs moving forward, especially when there are such big names potentially on the trade market. Joshua Menes, simply, thank you, Pop. And couldn't have said it better myself. Thank you, Pop. And he will still be there. His fingerprints are still all over this team as the head of basketball operations, and everything still runs from Pop down through this organization. Man M says, do you think Mitch gets to pick his own staff, or do they run it back? Look, I don't know if they're going to change anything on the staff, but if they do, I imagine it's minute tweaks. I don't see a whole staff overhaul because of Mitch Johnson being named the head coach. I believe he has taken this with the belief that he can finish this. Guys, this has been wonderful. I appreciate all of y'all for joining me. Remember to check on your loved ones. You never know what people are going through in life. And as always, enjoy your weekend, because we'll see you on Monday starting 6 a.m. with the Morning Huddle, then the Blitz, and of course, back here with me.
Ladies and gentlemen, the weekend.
San Antonio Sports Star.
Cinco de Mayo is near, and the celebration starts at Total Wine & More, your cocktail central. Whether you're shaking up fresh margaritas, sipping on a crisp cerveza, or savoring a smooth tequila, Total Wine is your fiesta celebration destination. So stop by your local Total Wine & More and make this Cinco de Mayo the best one yet. With the lowest prices for over 30 years, you'll always find what you love and love what you find. Only at Total Wine & More.
Drink responsibly, B21.
Quarterback Jordan Love isn't just on Green Bay's team. He's also on the American Family Insurance team. Because like